August 11, 2014. The world that Robin Williams had spent his life trying to make laugh suddenly went silent. The man who had brought joy to millions through 1,000 voices, 100 faces, and one enormous heart was gone. He was 63. The news came like a punch to the soul. People stared at their phones, televisions, and headlines in disbelief. Robin Williams dead. The words didn't make sense. How could the man who embodied laughter, kindness, and light have chosen silence? Across the globe, tributes poured in. Fans left flowers on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Comedians spoke through tears, and entire cities dimmed their lights for a man who had spent his life lighting them up. The shock wasn't just grief. It was guilt, because everyone realized too late that behind the laughter had been a cry for help no one had heard. For over 4 decades, Robin Williams had been a force of nature, a blur of genius, energy, and compassion. He didn't perform humor. He became it, shaping the air with his imagination. But those who looked closer knew that every joke carried a trace of melancholy, every burst of laughter a hint of loneliness. In his films, Good Will Hunting, Dead Poet Society, Mrs. Doubtfire, Patch Adams, he didn't just play characters. He healed people. He made them believe that kindness could still exist in a hard world. And yet, in his final hours, that same world felt unbearably quiet to him. When his light went out, the world dimmed a little with it. Because for once, there was no punchline, only silence. And in that silence, one question remained. How can a man who gave so much happiness have none left for himself? Before the world knew his name, before the laughter filled theaters and homes, Robin McLaurin Williams was just a quiet, lonely boy trying to make sense of the silence around him. He was born on July 21, 1951 in Chicago, Illinois, an only child in a large house that often felt empty. His father, Robert, was a senior executive for Ford Motor Company. His mother, Lori, was a model, elegant, witty, full of warmth. Robin adored her. He later said her humor saved him as a child. But despite the comfort of privilege, there was something missing: connection. The house was filled with expensive furniture and long hallways, but not much noise. Robin's parents worked often, and he spent much of his time alone, inventing worlds in his head. His imagination became his best friend. He would talk to his toys, create characters, perform full conversations in empty rooms. Even then, the seeds of genius were there. A child turning loneliness into performance, sadness into comedy. When he was a teenager, the family moved to California. The shift was drastic, from private schools to public life, from silence to the chaos of adolescence. Robin didn't fit in at first. He was shy, soft-spoken, and often bullied. But when he discovered that humor could disarm cruelty, everything changed. A single joke could make his classmates laugh instead of mock. And for a boy who had grown up alone, that laughter felt like love. He went on to study political science at Claremont Men's College, but soon realized his heart wasn't in it. The world of ideas couldn't compete with the world of imagination he carried inside. He dropped out and enrolled at the Juilliard School in New York, one of the most prestigious acting academies in the world. There, he met another young student who would become a lifelong friend, Christopher Reeve. At Juilliard, Robin's brilliance startled even his teachers. His improvisation was limitless, like a lightning storm of wit. One of his instructors told him, "You're the only student who makes everyone else forget their lines." But beneath the genius, he remained deeply sensitive, compassionate, self-doubting, always aware of others' pain. After school, he returned to California and began performing in small clubs. His stand-up wasn't just funny, it was electric. He didn't tell jokes. He channeled entire universes, voices, gestures, madness, tenderness, all in a single breath. Audiences left changed, unsure of what they had just witnessed. The lonely boy had finally found a world that listened, and soon that world would belong entirely to him. When Robin Williams stepped onto a stage, the air changed. He didn't enter a room, he ignited it. In the late 1970s, as comedy clubs bloomed across America, Robin became their wildfire. His stand-up was an explosion of brilliance. Accents, impressions, characters. and philosophical rambling all woven together in a tornado of energy. He moved so fast that even his mind seemed to struggle to keep up. He wasn't like anyone else. While other comics told stories, Robin created worlds. One moment he was a Scottish bartender, the next a Russian poet, then a lost alien describing humanity with awe and confusion. His comedy didn't come from arrogance, it came from empathy. He looked at life, its absurdities, its pains, and turned it all into laughter. Hollywood noticed. In 1978, Robin auditioned for a small role on a sitcom called Happy Days. He played a strange alien named Mork from the planet Ork. It was supposed to be a one-time gag, but his performance was so magnetic, so unpredictable, that it stole the entire episode. Within a year, he had his own show, Mork and Mindy. America fell in love. The series made him a household name. Children imitated his na-nu salute. Adults were mesmerized by his wild brilliance. Overnight, the quiet boy from Chicago had become a superstar. But fame, as he would learn, doesn't quiet the voices in your head. It just adds more noise. Behind the jokes and lightning speed improv, Robin was exhausted. His brain rarely stopped. His emotions rarely rested. He battled anxiety, insomnia, and an inner emptiness that laughter could never quite fill. To silence the chaos, he turned to the temptations that had swallowed so many in Hollywood. Late nights, drugs, alcohol. He laughed harder on stage than he ever could off it. And yet, he never lost his tenderness. He treated strangers like friends, fans like family, colleagues like equals. He once spent hours talking to homeless people outside comedy clubs, learning their stories. He carried their sadness home with him. As the 1980s unfolded, Robin turned toward acting, and the world discovered something it didn't expect. Beneath the clown was a poet. In Good Morning, Vietnam, 1987, he played a radio DJ bringing humor to soldiers lost in war. It was loud, funny, heartbreaking, and unmistakably him. In Dead Poets Society, 1989, he became an English teacher urging students to seize the day. The line "Carpe diem" would follow him forever. And in those quiet moments, when his voice softened and his eyes glistened, the world saw the truth. His comedy wasn't about escaping sadness, it was about surviving it. Robin Williams became the rarest kind of performer, one who could make you laugh until you cried, then cry until you laughed again. Through the 1990s, his career soared. Mrs. Doubtfire, Aladdin, Good Will Hunting, Patch Adams, each role different, yet bound by the same soul. He gave voice to a genie who taught joy, to a therapist who healed broken men, to a father who would do anything for his children. Audiences didn't just watch him, they trusted him. When he won the Oscar for Good Will Hunting in 1998, he stood on stage, humbled and trembling, and whispered, "This might be the happiest moment of my life." But even that happiness came with shadows. The spotlight that once felt warm now burned. He feared losing it. He feared losing himself. He filled every silence with humor, every pain with kindness. But the laughter that healed millions could not always reach the man who gave it. Behind that grin, that twinkle in his eye, there was still the lonely boy in the big quiet house, trying to make someone, anyone, smile back. Fame had given Robin Williams everything. Applause, awards, love from millions. But it had also taken what no one could see, peace. The same mind that dazzled the world with brilliance was also the one that refused to rest. Through the 2000s, the cracks widened. He had fought addiction before. Cocaine in the early years, alcohol later. But the battle never truly ended. Robin was honest about it, even self-deprecating, once saying, "Cocaine is God's way of telling you you're making too much money." Behind the humor was pain, an endless effort to stay afloat in a world that wanted him to keep dancing. He went to rehab more than once. He tried therapy, meditation, friendship, faith. He got sober, fell, rose, fell again. But the pattern was less about weakness and more about humanity. He didn't want to die. He just wanted the noise to stop. Even in his darkest times, he kept working. Movies like 1 Hour Photo and Insomnia showed a different side of him. Still brilliant, but darker, quieter. Audiences saw those films as performances, but friends saw something else. A man looking into his own reflection, asking himself who he really was when the laughter was gone. Still, Robin loved life, or at least he wanted to. He loved his children with a tenderness that rarely made the headlines. He spoke of them often, calling them his reason to stay on earth. He remarried in 2011 to Susan Schneider, a woman who brought calm to his storm. For a while, things looked brighter, but in 2013, something began to change. Subtly, quietly, almost invisibly. His hands started to tremble. He grew anxious. He couldn't remember lines he used to recite effortlessly. He began to lose confidence in his body, in his mind, in his magic. Doctors thought it was Parkinson's disease. He accepted the diagnosis with the same grace he brought to everything else, humility and humor. But deep down, fear had already taken root. What no one knew, not even Robin, was that he wasn't suffering from Parkinson's. He was battling Lewy body dementia, a rare and brutal brain disorder that attacks memory, sleep, and emotion. It was stealing him piece by piece. He felt it happening. The confusion, the fading spark, the fog swallowing his once vivid imagination. For a man whose gift was thought itself, whose brilliance came from an untamed mind, this was the cruelest fate. He couldn't make sense of the world anymore. He once told a friend, "I just want to reboot my brain." By 2014, he was spiraling. The world saw the smile, the jokes, the warmth, but those closest to him saw the exhaustion. He still tried to make others laugh, even when he couldn't laugh himself. He cracked jokes with hospital staff, hugged fans, lifted others' spirits, as if saving everyone else might somehow save him too. But late one August morning, the fight became too much. In his quiet California home, surrounded by his awards, his memories, and photographs of his children, Robin Williams ended his life. He left behind no note, only silence. When the news broke, disbelief turned to heartbreak. How could the world's brightest light fade like this? How could laughter itself die? For days, the internet filled with his quotes, his clips, his characters. People realized all at once how much he had meant to them. He had taught them to feel joy, and they hadn't seen his pain. And that perhaps was the truest tragedy of all. He had spent a lifetime rescuing others from sadness, but no one had realized he needed rescuing too. When the news of Robin Williams' death circled the globe, the world didn't just grieve, it stopped. Television anchors couldn't speak without trembling. Comedians cried on air. From New York to Tokyo, from Paris to Mumbai, people lit candles, played his movies, and whispered, "Thank you, Robin." For decades, he had been the voice of laughter, but also of empathy. He gave faces to humanity's deepest emotions: joy, sadness, confusion, and love. And now in his absence, people realized that his real gift wasn't comedy, it was connection. His family mourned in private, his wife and children shattered by a grief too personal for words. Zelda Williams, his daughter, wrote one of the most moving tributes ever shared online. "You're free now, Dad. I love you." A simple sentence that carried the weight of an entire lifetime and the pain of letting go. Hollywood honored him with silence. At the next Academy Awards, host Neil Patrick Harris simply said, "The world lost a lot of its sparkle." And on social media, a single image went viral, a drawing of the genie from Aladdin hugging Robin with the words, "Genie, you're free." It was more than a tribute. It was catharsis. Because Robin had given the world permission to laugh through pain. Now the world was giving him permission to rest. Over time, his death sparked a conversation that was long overdue. People began to speak openly about depression, about invisible suffering, about the truth that mental illness doesn't always look sad. Sometimes it looks like a smile. Robin's passing, painful as it was, saved lives. In a way, his final gift was awareness, a reminder that the brightest souls can still feel the darkest nights. But beyond grief, his legacy lived in light. Every year, fans revisit Dead Poets Society, whispering, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." They laugh again with Mrs. Doubtfire, cry again with Good Will Hunting, and find comfort in Aladdin's magic. In those moments, he's still alive, still teaching, still healing, still reminding us to seize the day. He left behind an estate worth over $100 million, but no amount of wealth could measure the richness of what he gave the world. Children who grew up watching him learned kindness from his eyes. Adults rediscovered hope in his words. He proved that laughter isn't the opposite of sadness, it's its companion. Even now, a decade later, his influence remains everywhere. In comedians who mix comedy with truth, in therapists who use humor to heal, in ordinary people who face their pain with courage because he once made them believe they could. Robin Williams showed us that a life filled with laughter could still be deeply human, fragile, and real. He didn't need to be perfect to be powerful. He just needed to be honest. In a world obsessed with noise, his silence became the loudest reminder of all, that joy and sorrow often come from the same heart. And when people remember him today, they don't just smile, they feel, because that's what Robin always wanted us to do. The day of his memorial, San Francisco, the city he loved most, was blanketed in fog. Outside the Palace of Fine Arts, fans gathered with flowers, photos, and handwritten letters. There was no stage, no microphone, no performance, only silence. For once, the man who had filled the world with sound was being remembered in stillness. Inside the theater, friends and family sat in the half-light. His children spoke softly, their voices trembling between pride and pain. Hollywood's biggest names, people who had laughed beside him, cried with him, learned from him, wiped away tears they didn't bother to hide. Billy Crystal, his oldest friend, said simply, "He made us laugh so hard that sometimes we forgot he was hurting." And in that room, everyone understood. Laughter had been his gift and his disguise. When the service ended, they didn't play music. They played silence. Because silence was all that was left when a man like Robin Williams left the world. In the days that followed, murals appeared across the globe. In Chicago, his hometown, one showed Robin with angel's wings, holding a genie's lamp. In San Francisco, another captured him as Mrs. Doubtfire smiling through tears. And everywhere, three simple words were written beneath his face. "Thank you, Robin." His ashes were scattered over San Francisco Bay, the same waters he once crossed as a young actor dreaming of laughter, love, and purpose. And maybe in some strange way, he finally found peace there, among the waves, the wind, and the echoes of his own kindness. Today, when we watch Good Will Hunting or Dead Poets Society, his voice still feels alive. It carries the same warmth, the same ache, the same reminder that humor and heartbreak often live side by side. And somewhere, between those two, lies the truth of being human. Robin Williams didn't just leave a fortune. He left a lesson that joy is not the absence of pain, but the courage to keep laughing through it. And so the world still asks, quietly, like a prayer, can a heart that gives everything ever truly be gone? Or do its echoes keep us alive a little longer?